Welcome to another episode of Office Hours, the recap, where we go a little deeper into the discussion that we had in our Discord room over on chatbotbuilder.ai. Let's get started.
Okay, so you know how on the deep dive, we love to just take some really interesting material that you've sent our way and just kind of, cut through the noise and figure out what are those key takeaways, those insights, those things that'll make you, our listener, instantly informed on a topic. Well, that's exactly what we're doing today.
And the fascinating material we're diving into today is a transcript. It's actually from a recent office hours session, a really lively one, for users of a platform called CBB. Now, that stands for Chatbot Builder, in case you're wondering. It's a really neat peek behind the scenes, into the world of building and troubleshooting chatbots.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, this isn't some, theoretical textbook stuff. This is straight from the source. Real people, real problems, real solutions.
Exactly. And it's all about those practical hands-on challenges and how people are tackling them in the real world. It's like having a direct line to the collective wisdom of a whole community of chatbot builders.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes it so valuable for our listeners, right? It's like we're giving you a fast track to understanding what it really takes to build effective chatbots.
So our mission for this deep dive is to really pull out those key learnings, those aha moments. What are those common pitfalls that people run into? What are those ingenious workarounds they come up with? And what are those clever strategies for building chatbots that really perform well regardless of the channel they're on?
Right. I mean, because chatbots are everywhere now, right? SMS, voice assistants, web chat, social media. They need to be adaptable.
Yeah.
But first up, we've got Daniel's story.
Right, Daniel. So he's working on this really interesting project, a chatbot for landlords. The idea is to gather information from potential tenants, and he's even built in some translation capabilities, which is pretty impressive, right?
Yeah, that's ambitious. But it sounds like he hit a couple of snags right off the bat.
Oh, he did. The first one was that his chatbot was a bit forgetful, I guess you could say. Intermittently, it would lose track of things like the tenant's preferred lease start date and whether they needed parking or not.
Oh, that's not good.
This is where the beauty of that CBB community really shines. Kim, another user, jumped in with some really helpful suggestions. She pointed out that sometimes it's those tiny details that can trip these AI models up. Like maybe the date format wasn't quite what the chatbot expected, or maybe the way Daniel was handling that yes or no question about parking wasn't being processed consistently.
Yeah, I mean, it can be so frustrating when everything seems logically sound, but the chatbot just isn't behaving as it should.
Exactly. And Kim even shared this really interesting anecdote about her own experience. She had this one chatbot that was acting up in a similar way, and it turned out that simply changing a word in the prompt from confirms to says completely fixed the issue. It's amazing how sensitive these systems can be.
I know. It's like you have to speak their language perfectly, right? Find that exact combination of words that they understand. So did Daniel confirm whether he was, using a simple yes/no for that parking question?
He did. He confirmed that he was keeping it simple, just yes or no. So that wasn't the issue. And then Ryan chimed in, mentioning an earlier conversation they'd had about the word variable. Apparently, using that word in the AI prompts could sometimes cause problems.
Oh, interesting. So it's not even just about the logic of the chatbot, but also the specific language used to instruct the AI.
Exactly. And get this, Daniel had actually already thought of that and had switched from using variable to custom field in his agent's instructions. So he was one step ahead.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
But did that actually fix the issue?
Well, during a live test right there in the office hour session, his chatbot still failed to correctly capture the lease date and the parking preference. So the mystery continued.
So even with all the right intentions and some clever adjustments, it still wasn't working perfectly.
Right. That's why live testing is so crucial. It really exposes those hidden bugs. But they didn't give up. They then moved on to the second major issue Daniel was facing.
Which was?
That the agent wasn't reliably sending out that final confirmation message, the one with all the important documentation attached.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. You can't have a landlord bot that doesn't send out confirmations.
Exactly. And Kim, based on her experience, suggested something really interesting. She thought maybe moving the generation of that final message to a separate AI block, or maybe even triggering it through a function call, might make it more reliable. It's like isolating that crucial step to make sure it doesn't get lost in the shuffle.
So it's kind of like compartmentalizing, right? Making sure that one critical function has its own dedicated space. Does that create more complexity, though, when you start breaking things down like that?
It's a good question. It might add a few more building blocks to your overall flow, but the trade-off is potentially greater stability. By separating it out, you're reducing the risk that an error in one part of the flow will accidentally mess up that confirmation message.
Right, it's like a fail-safe. So did they try that approach?
They did. They added a new AI block specifically for that confirmation flow and placed it right at the start of that part of the process. And initial tests looked promising. The message was being sent.
Great, problem solved.
Well, not quite. There was a twist. The message wasn't being sent in French. Remember, in this particular interaction, the user's preferred language was French.
Oh, right. So it was translating everything else correctly, but not that final message. It's almost like the chatbot was forgetting to apply the translation at the very last step.
Exactly. And that's where Ryan, who, by the way, is hilariously referred to as McNasty in the transcript, really came through. He realized that they hadn't explicitly told the AI prompt to use the detected preferred language.
Oh, I see. It's not enough for the system to know the language. You actually have to tell it to use that language in that specific step.
Exactly. You have to be super specific with these AI models.
Yeah.
So Daniel updated the prompt, and guess what? The final test was a complete success. All the information was captured correctly, and the confirmation message was sent out in perfect French.
Fantastic. So did they figure out if that variable to custom field change also helped with those earlier issues?
Well, it's hard to say for sure, but the fact that everything worked perfectly after that change suggests that it probably played a role. Sometimes the smallest tweaks can make all the difference.
Absolutely. Speaking of small tweaks, Daniel then shared this fascinating tidbit about a send flow step that was initially crucial for his translation agent to function correctly. It had to do with how JSON, which is a way to structure data, handles multiple data points within a single field. So the takeaway here is, pay attention to those details, be explicit with your instructions, and don't be afraid to experiment with different ways of structuring your flows, especially when you're working with something as complex as translation.
Absolutely. Every little detail matters. And now let's shift gears a bit and talk about Kim's visual dilemma.
Yeah, this is something a lot of people struggle with, right? Getting those design elements just right.
So Kim was having trouble adjusting the width of these Linktree style templates in CBB. For those who don't know, a Linktree page is basically like a little website with multiple links. It's often used on social media profiles. She wanted to make her templates wider for a more consistent look.
Ah, yes. The eternal struggle with CSS.
It never ends. And Blaine chimed in with a very 21st century solution. Use ChatGPT. Give it some screenshots and tell it to just change the width. Sounds pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah, let the AI handle the styling. What could go wrong?
Well, as it turns out, things weren't quite that simple. Kim tried it, but the AI suggestions weren't quite hitting the mark, which, is a good reminder that these AI tools are powerful, but they're not magic. They still need clear instructions, and sometimes their output needs a bit of interpretation and tweaking.
Right, they're not always a one-shot solution. So what did Kim try next?
Well, she decided to get her hands dirty with some good old-fashioned CSS. She started playing around with properties like padding and max width, but she noticed that when she used percentage width, she ran into alignment issues. A very common web design headache, as I'm sure many can relate to.
Ugh, yeah, percentages can be tricky. So did she find a solution?
What's interesting is she started developing this theory that maybe padding was the key. She had a wider version of the template that used text links instead of icons, and it seemed to rely more on padding for spacing.
Interesting. So it's like she was reverse engineering a solution by looking at a working example. That's a really useful skill.
Yeah.
Pay attention to what works and try to figure out why it works.
Absolutely. Now, the transcript doesn't specifically say whether she definitively solved the width problem during the session. Sometimes these styling things just take time and experimentation.
And that's a great lesson for everyone, right? Don't be afraid to dig into the code, try different things, and don't expect a perfect solution right away.
Absolutely. Persistence is key. And Kim's adventures didn't end there. Next up, she encountered a conflict while trying to integrate a custom pop-up web chat into her website.
Uh-oh, another technical challenge.
It seems so. She had built this custom chat using an HTML block and an iframe, but it was clashing with her main website's existing chat widget. Only one of them would work properly at a time.
Well, that's a classic. Different systems not playing nicely together.
Exactly. So what did she do? She came up with a very practical workaround. She created separate landing pages for each of her demo bots and then just linked to those landing pages from buttons on her main website.
Smart. So instead of trying to force them to coexist on the same page, she just gave them their own separate spaces.
Yeah.
Simple but effective.
It is. And you know what? Diana actually thought the separate landing page approach could be even better for directing traffic. People clicking on a specific button clearly want to see that specific demo.
Right, it's almost like a built-in filtering system. You're guiding people to the right chatbot from the get-go.
Exactly. And Blaine, of course, had a theory about the root cause of that conflict. He suspected it was probably a WordPress issue.
Ah, WordPress. So powerful, yet so prone to unexpected behavior sometimes.
It's true. So what's the key learning here? Be mindful of potential conflicts, especially on platforms like WordPress. Sometimes a workaround is the best, and maybe even a more strategic solution.
Great point. Now let's move on to Emil and Christina's story. They were running into some interesting challenges managing their SMS bot conversations, specifically those handled through Twilio.
Yes, they were really focused on finding ways to monitor those conversations more effectively, to get valuable insights from them, and to smoothly transition to human support when needed. And all of this while navigating that tricky Twilio A2P approval process.
Right. The A2P, which stands for Application to Person, is a requirement for businesses that send bulk SMS messages. It's kind of a safeguard to prevent spam.
Exactly. And Christina actually shared a really useful tip here. She said that in her experience, businesses that are primarily focused on inbound SMS communication, where the customer is initiating the conversation, tend to have a much easier time getting that A2P approval.
That's a great tip. So if you're planning to use SMS for your chatbot, focus on those inbound use cases to simplify that approval process.
Makes sense. Now, Emil's solution to the monitoring and intervention challenge was pretty impressive. He took it upon himself to build a custom front-end dashboard.
Wow, that's dedication. What did that dashboard allow him to do?
Well, it gave them a way to view the history of all their Twilio SMS conversations, monitor any active chats in real time, and even provided a mechanism for their staff to step in and take over from the bot when necessary. It was a really elegant solution.
That's amazing, and a great example of how sometimes you need to get creative and build your own tools to meet your specific needs.
Absolutely. And then the conversation shifted to the need for multi-channel deployment. Emil and Christina wanted to use their bot on other platforms beyond just SMS, which is where CBB's capabilities really shone.
Right, because the ideal scenario is to build your bot once and then deploy it everywhere. No one wants to create separate bots for every single channel.
Exactly. And that's where Kim, Ryan, and Diana stepped in to showcase how CBB handles this multi-channel magic.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear about this. How does CBB make that process so seamless?
They highlighted this thing called the message checker template. Think of it like a smart traffic director for your bot.
Okay, I like that analogy.
It can automatically detect which channel a message is coming from, whether it's SMS, a voice call, web chat, social media, and then it intelligently routes that conversation to the correct flow.
So the bot knows exactly how to respond, no matter where the message is coming from.
Exactly. And the best part is you can reuse those core AI agents and prompts across all those different channels.
Right. So you don't have to rebuild everything from scratch for each platform. Huge time saver.
Absolutely. And what about those situations where a human needs to step in?
Yeah. How do you handle that handoff smoothly?
Well, CBB has some really useful built-in functions like transfer to human or notify admin.
Okay, so it can basically call for backup when it needs help.
Exactly. And these actions can be triggered automatically by the AI. Maybe it's not confident about understanding the user's request, or maybe it detects certain keywords that indicate a need for human intervention.
Oh, I see. So it's like a safety net. The bot knows when it's out of its depth, and it can flag a human to take over.
Kim even proposed this really thoughtful workflow where the bot could proactively send a notification to an admin, like, hey, I need your input before I proceed with this. And then Diana actually showed them how to configure those admin notification settings within CBB.
Wow, that's pretty slick. So it's all about making that transition from bot to human as seamless as possible.
Absolutely. And then Ryan brought up another really valuable point. He reminded them that CBD can analyze saved chat history.
Oh, that's a gold mine of information.
Yeah.
You can see what questions people are asking, identify common issues, and figure out where you can improve the bot's responses.
Exactly. It's all about that continuous improvement cycle.
So for our listeners, I think the key takeaways from Emil and Christina's experience are, first, if you're heavily reliant on specific channel, like SMS, it might be worth investing in a custom dashboard for better monitoring and control. But even more importantly, explore those platforms like CBB that offer true multi-channel deployment. Don't limit yourself. And definitely look into features that facilitate a smooth handoff to human agents and leverage that chat history for continuous improvement.
Great advice. And now for something completely different. Roderick's challenges with his voice agent, he was using a combination of audio codes technology and the CBB platform.
Oh, voice agents. That's a whole other level of complexity.
It is. And Roderick had a couple of main issues. First, he was struggling with multilingual support in the voice channel, which apparently can be tricky. Diana confirmed that she'd run into similar challenges.
Yeah, I imagine translating spoken language in real time is a whole different ballgame compared to text-based translation.
Absolutely. Diana even mentioned some specific audio codes translation settings that she hadn't quite mastered yet.
So even with a user-friendly platform like CBB, when you start integrating with these specialized external services, you can run into a whole new set of technical hurdles.
Exactly. And then Roderick brought up another issue. He wasn't getting a ringback tone during call transfers initiated by his voice agent.
Oh, that'd be awkward. Just silence on the other end.
Exactly. Not a great user experience. And everyone seemed to agree that this was most likely an external configuration problem, maybe with the audio code setup or his SIP trunk provider, rather than a CBB issue.
Right, so sometimes the problem isn't with the chatbot platform itself, but with how it's connected to all these other systems. It's a good reminder to think holistically about your setup.
Definitely. Now, on a brighter note, Roderick shared a really cool success story. He had actually replaced one of his clients' old IVR systems, those interactive voice response systems, with the CBB voice agent. Pretty impressive.
That's awesome. It's a testament to how powerful these modern chatbot platforms can be, even for handling those complex voice interactions.
And Roderick had another trick up his sleeve. He wanted to use CBB functions to send SMS links during voice calls, triggered by certain keywords.
Oh, that's clever. So someone calls in, mentions a specific topic, and the voice agent sends them a text message with a link to more information. It's like bridging the gap between voice and text.
Exactly. Very innovative. Now, his second set of challenges revolved around marketing. He was looking for advice on promoting his voice agent solution on LinkedIn and also needed help setting up email marketing for a client.
Ah, yes. The marketing hurdle. It's one thing to build a great product, but then you have to get the word out. So what kind of advice did the group offer?
Well, Kim stressed the importance of having a working demo and a clearly defined process, like what's your message? What are you offering? What does the onboarding process look like? She emphasized that having all of that nailed down was crucial before even thinking about reaching out on LinkedIn.
Makes sense. You don't want to try to sell something that you can't clearly explain or demonstrate.
And Ryan chimed in with a really important point. He said Roderick needed to focus on those core value propositions. How does his voice agent solution save people time and money?
Right, because ultimately that's what businesses care about. What's the ROI?
Exactly. The group also had a great discussion about targeting those marketing efforts where they'll have the most impact. Like maybe focusing on local businesses who are actively searching online for ways to improve their customer service.
So the key takeaways for our listeners regarding voice agents are, first, multilingual voice applications can be tough, especially when you're dealing with external services. Second, when it comes to marketing, focus on those clear value propositions and target your efforts strategically. And last but not least, always have a compelling demo and a well-defined process in place before you start reaching out to potential clients.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And now for the grand finale, some live platform demonstrations.
Yes. I always love seeing these systems in action. What do they showcase?
Well, Ryan, aka McNasty, and Roderick himself teamed up to give everyone a tour of the CBB inbox. It's this amazing tool that consolidates conversations from all the different channels. SMS, web chat, messenger, voice calls. It's all there in one place.
So instead of having to jump between different platforms, you can manage everything from a single interface.
Exactly. And they demonstrated how you can easily switch between bot control and human control. They also showed how to view the full chat history, any custom fields associated with that user, and even some really neat troubleshooting features, like this thing called View Executed Actions, which basically gives you a step-by-step breakdown of everything the bot has done during that conversation.
Oh, wow. That would be so helpful for debugging, see exactly what the bot did and why it might have gone wrong.
Absolutely. They also clarified that voice calls generally appear in the inbox as transcribed text.
Oh, that's great. It's so much easier to review and analyze a written transcript than it is to listen to an entire audio recording.
Totally agree. And then Diana gave a demonstration of CBB's multi-channel setup. She walked them through how that message checker flow figures out where a message is coming from, and then routes it to the right place, all while allowing you to reuse that core bot logic that you've already built.
So efficient. It really highlights how much time and effort these platforms can save you.
Absolutely. So for you, our listener, the key takeaways from these demonstrations are this. Modern chatbot platforms offer integrated inboxes that can streamline your support efforts and give you a unified view of all your customer interactions. And the ability to reuse that core bot logic across multiple channels. That's a game changer. It saves you so much time and ensures a consistent customer experience no matter how they choose to contact you.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from those nitty-gritty details of chatbot development to those big picture marketing strategies and everything in between.
And we've seen firsthand how a supportive community like the one on CBD can be invaluable for overcoming challenges and sharing knowledge.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up, here's a thought for you to ponder. Thinking back on everything we've discussed today, what's one problem in your world, whether it's in your business, your work, or even just a personal project, that you think a chatbot could help you solve? And what's one small step you could take today to start exploring that possibility?
That wraps up another discussion on the office hours recap. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. And as always, come on over and join us in the Discord room every week live at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. See you next week.